Hello and welcome to Satish show. You may have heard that Raghuram Rajan, our former RBI governor and one of the best known economists from India today on the world stage, he has again warned us that our image is a very important, invisible asset that we have, and we are somehow hurting it. In the international market, how the world sees us is a very important capital asset that we have, invisible, but that's what it is. Valuation is not something which is done in stones. It is done in the minds of people, those who have a future in mind. That's where our image has become, slightly sullied. What is that image? The image is that we have become a nation of bigots. We have become a nation where we are torturing our minorities. We've become a nation where we are not paying attention to the right causes. It's not just about Ukraine. It's not just about Russia. I think the Ukraine and Russian story is easy to sell from India's point of view. India has done a great job of selling the story. And that said, my position on Ukraine is very simple. Ukraine has become pawn in the hands of major superpowers. Ukraine's president, he had no political experience, and he was installed because of his popularity and because he was in a comedy show where he actually even acted as a president. I don't know what the end of that comedy was, but anyway, he became the president. And that probably is the most tragic thing for Ukraine, because for him it may be comedy, but for Ukraine it's a tragedy where more than 5 million people have had to leave the country. Don't forget, it's a country of 40 million people. 5 million is more than 1 in 8 Ukrainians has left the country. And there are a few 100,000 we don't know the numbers of. They have lost their lives. All because one Ukrainian president who had a comedy background, who was installed by the oligarchy, played in the hands of superpowers, not knowing which way to go, not knowing his own threat perceptions, and now all international politics and international relations and laws are being used to understand how to see it and how to resolve it, and probably there is no immediate resolution possible. Just like America was the aggressor in Iraq and Afghanistan, USSR is more aggressive in Ukraine. Just like America killed hundreds of thousands of people in Asia, West Asia, USSR is killing there. It's a power game. And in that power game, no rules apply. Rules are set by those who have power. Anyway, that's not the matter of the day. I'm talking about our image. Our image as a nation, as a people. So far, the image of India was that of a nation where very intelligent people live. Who are these intelligent people? They come to America to become doctors. They become 1/3 of American doctors are Indians. They're doing a great job. Engineers, quite a few engineers from India, 60,000 thereabouts, they go every year. When they go, a few come back. And you add in 35 years, about 30 years, 60,000 every year, they've gone there. That adds to about 1.8 million, roughly 2 million people. Today, America has about 3 million Indians who are diaspora, those who are doing fine. And they have created an image of India being a nation of intelligent people, good engineers, good doctors. We don't have the image of creating something great, something new, but we have the image of being good engineers and good doctors. On that has been added the image of a nation of bigots, nation where Muslims are being tortured. Rana Ayub made a big presentation among various journalists and the state administration, and she has become a major columnist in Washington Post. And because she is passionate about something she saw and heard 20 years back, and she is totally committed to taking that message to the world, and that's creating an image as well. But that image is necessary for us to see within us what she's doing, what she's saying, is as important a part of that narrative. But it's not just that. When we bring foreign dignitaries in our country, what do? We cover our roadsides. We hide our truth. We hide our reality. Why do we do that? Clearly, we are also ashamed of our own reality. If we were not, we would not do it. Think of it from a middle class point of view. When we invite guests, we clean up our houses. We clean up the environment that we show to people. And that's the same thing happens because obviously we can't afford any better and we want to put the best foot forward, best face forward. And that's perfectly legitimate, perfectly understandable. These are, important human feelings and we respect them. We don't laugh at those who try to show us their best face. That's okay. But the better thing would be, isn't it, that we become someone we can proudly display ourselves. We can present ourselves proudly. That's a slightly more desirable way to look at building our nation. So Dr. Manmohan Singh also chimed in. He basically said more or less similar things. What he's trying to say is that we have to create a good impression, good image. Now, image is an invisible asset, invisible capital. Image builds our valuation of the nation, of people who live here, people who create something. When a startup goes to seek money, what is he basically getting valued for? Something totally invisible, something into the future. It can't be seen. It's not physical asset. So the perceptions are more powerful. We all know that. Every politician knows that. That's why they work for perception. That's why they lie all the time. That's why they see that the lies are not caught. That's why they try to project everything. Donald Trump is the greatest example of them all. It's hard to find in history a person more vile, more outlawed, more evil, more whatever. You can take everything. If you look at all the articles in New York Times, you will run out of words of the negative intent to describe a man like Donald Trump. This is the New York Times, including Washington Post. If you go to Wall Street Journal, probably it'll be a different story. It'll be couched in different words, but somewhere along the line, some policies, because they're Republican policies, will get supported there. But you will find a different language, but deep down, there is the same level of discomfort. But he created an image that basically worked for 30 to 35% Americans, and some riding on the wave of Republican sympathy. He just carried through, and today he owns the Republican Party like no president ever may have owned, or no former president ever may have owned either. So that's about perception. He created a perception that he was a successful man, and he will make every American as successful as him. And he managed to get 40% Americans to believe in him. And that even though he didn't win the mass support in terms of votes, he managed to strategically get the American system is slightly complicated. It's not first past the post who wins effectively for presidentship. And he found a way to be elected. And next time he couldn't find. But in both cases, he didn't win the popular mandate. But he got enough. 40 to 45% is good enough. And these people believe in him. That's the perception created. So perception is very important. And India is beginning to put a question mark on the perception created during the Narasimha Rao regime. Narasimha Rao opened up and freed India. That was the second freedom, not 2014. 1991 was the second freedom, not 2014. And let's understand that. 2014 is, hyping up. On that, there's never been a time when India hyped up things like it did in 2014 onwards. But 1990 changes were real changes. Today we are sitting on, and whatever we can think, and the fresh air we began breathing were made possible because of changes Narasimha Rao made in 1990s. And Manmohan Singh was Rao was a visualizer and conceptualizer, and he is the one who gave a go-ahead. And Manmohan Singh did the job to the extent I used to hear industries used to say, we want Manmohan Singh as Prime Minister. Because Rao was not so communicative. Rao was not creating an image. He was a strategist. He was astute. He was able to see beyond most other Indian prime ministers. And he saw that, and therefore he changed it. But he allowed Manmohan Singh's perception to be created in the market is larger than life. Manmohan Singh has always been a good employee, a very good deputy, a very good support. And he does what leaders tell him. But he is not a leader. He never said he was a leader. He was always an appointed prime minister. So my friend, my classmate may have written a book, Accidental Prime Minister. Yes, he was an excellent prime minister. He never aspired for it. He never imagined it. It was not a job for him. A prime minister is the one who can win elections. And that's why Narendra Bhai is the prime minister. And no question about that. He's done something extraordinary, and that's it. But then the wisdom of Narasimha Rao, how to see beyond the hype, beyond thali, whatever, etc., drum beating, etc., that goes on. A leader sees beyond that. And I hope our great leader sees beyond that too. Because in seeing beyond that, in seeing past, not being bigoted, but looking into the future where we are headed. If we are headed back to 2,000 years ago, if we're going to settle the scores of whatever the Mughal battles were there, because the Mughals killed, and this is where the Red Fort speech comes in. Even if we talk about the greatness of our leaders, we don't have to talk about the history that divides us, that can create a kind of drive a wedge. So that's the basic issue. A great leader looks at it this way, summarizes the history in a way that takes us forward. But unfortunately, what's happening is we are summarizing history to take us 2,000 years ago. I hope we get past that. But the question of perception is as real as anything else that we can imagine. It's invisible, but that's what makes people believe in us. Now is the time to correct the course, because we have lost our GDP from more than $2,500 billion, brought it to $2,000 billion. I don't know what's happening to the data and numbers, but that's what so far looks like. It may be all because of COVID. It may be all because of demonetization. It may be all because of any policies that we have. Time to correct the course is always available to us. The question is how far we can see. Question is what kind of image we want. Question is what kind of India we are trying to create. The India that we see day in and day out for the last several months or few years is something which is beyond our imagination. In the way we grew up. The way we grew up was, and every good word that defined India has been turned into a bad word. If you're a thinking person, you become urban Naxal. Think of it. Anyone you think, if you're a secular, they call you secular. If you're a free press, they call you prostitute. Everything which was good about India has been turned upside down. That's what it seems. It doesn't have to be that way. Time for us to rethink and not do things like Jahangir Puri, which makes us hang our head in shame. Time to change the image again. We are a nation of very thoughtful, balanced, respecting of each other people who believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, who believe in Sarvadham Sambhav. With that, I take your leave. Until next time. Thank you.